Hey, everybody. Welcome back. That's my radio voice. Welcome back to Kinda Libertarian. I'm Jeff Siegel, and this is Mike Turpin. How's it going today, buddy?
What's up? It's good to
Hey,
see you.
so we have got to jump right in today because some shit really pissed me off last week. The uh, the Libertarian Party of Kentucky put out this tweet. It said, "Are the vaccine passports going to be yellow, shaped like a star, and sewn on our clothes?" Okay, so not only as a Jew is that offensive to me, but as a libertarian, it is offensive to me because this is the problem, man. Like, so many people read this, like so many people read that, and almost all the responses from people were, typical racist libertarians. Like everything was just piling on libertarians, like, were these horrible, like ultra right, racist people. And I don't like the fundamentals of libertarianism don't even like apply to that. It's the complete opposite of that. But then you have people like this that put out a really just offensive, like a tweet that just does not represent what this is supposed to be about. Dude, I was so pissed off. I don't know why I was pissed off. It's just some random dude that put it out there, but I was mostly pissed because it was just another example of how all these people now that want to hate on libertarians, now they have more ammunition once again. And it's just, I even tagged Libertarian Party. I'm like, this is why the Libertarian Party can't get anywhere, because you guys can't get your shit straight. Am I,
Yeah.
or am I just,
Now,
am I just getting, am I getting, am
oh,
I too offended by that?
you know what, dude? It sounds, 100% sounds right. And this is a problem with fringe politics is that, for instance, I've brought up how I have friends who are contributors to the anarchist party. One of them's in the green and black anarchist sort of perspective. And then recently, in the past few years, we've had a surge of popular anarchism. And it is so far from the people who have actually intellectually put hard effort into anarchism as a view to a degree, right? Similarly, you could say the same about like all of the Tea Party things that came up when that was a thing. There was the radical, there was the extremes, and libertarianism almost seems to me, um, it seems like people, because it's so hard to put its finger on, which we've talked about, that people just think somebody within it represents everybody, but there's so much room for what seems like differing views within the party due to the framework of libertarianism. Because like what is the glue that connects everybody in the party? And you're going to realize it's probably about as diverse and dynamic as a group of people as you could get. And now you're being judged, and your group of people are being judged by this. And this is the segment of the show I like to call, we hinted at this at the first episode, explain it to me like I'm five, because
Right.
all right, so this is, what is this guy exactly saying about this? Like what is exactly does that tweet mean?
Okay, so this idea of the vaccine passport, okay, first of all, is a massive violation of civil rights, and I can't foresee it ever taking hold, and it's just absurd that you would do something like that. But I know a lot of people are so terrified by COVID that a lot of people are like, yeah, that's a great idea. I have my passport. It says I have, I don't have COVID, and I get into this place, I get into that place. There's so many problems with that. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. I mean, it's just a violation. Like I said, it's just a violation of civil rights. And you could potentially probably say it's a violation of constitutional rights too, when you get into like, the ability to assemble peaceably in any given location. So obviously I'm opposed to this idea. But when people, and this happens a lot, and conservatives, well, everyone does it. Liberals do it on one thing, conservatives do it on the other, but conservatives typically do this when it comes to someone's rights being violated in terms of like something like this, saying, or like the mask thing, like, oh, I'm not going to wear a mask because you can't make me wear a mask. There's a big difference between the murder of 6 million Jews and a vaccine passport. Both are bad ideas, but one is significantly worse than the other. You know what I'm saying? And it's not
Yeah.
like we can go beyond 6 million Jews. I mean, like, what Hitler did, it was beyond just the Jews, but Jews are the ones that walked around with the yellow stars of David on, to be identified. There is nothing even remotely, close to that when he's talking about a vaccine passport. I am on their side 100% in terms of opposing this, vaccine passport or whatever the hell it's called. But come on, and listen, this happens too. I am so fucking tired of everyone comparing shit they don't like to Nazis and Hitler.
Dude, you just read my mind. I was literally just about to say, can we stop taking people seriously who compare everything to Hitler?
Right.
Can we please stop? Can we stop making that speak for everybody we don't like apparently is Hitler and everything is Nazi Germany? And it sucks that people, what I think that it comes down to is that people want to take people seriously that they know they shouldn't take seriously just because it's ammunition and it's leverage.
Right.
It's the us versus them. So one idiot gets to represent everybody.
Right.
I mean, Donald Trump as a politician hardly represented the Republican Party. I mean, historically, he's been both Democrat and Republican, and
Right.
was hardly a politician. But every single thing that he did got to, be seen as representing all of it doesn't help that most conservatives were pretty pro-Trump,
Right.
but in general you get the idea. It's like they want to be able to take this type of comment seriously, when if we were to be honest with ourselves, we would just realize that most intelligent people would think this was stupid, and only in a very idiotic or dense or narrow, even libertarian, would align with this sort of view or this sort of sensationalism. It's a different type of thinking to be able to sensationalize something so extremely.
Right. But it's so funny because it's guilty on both sides. So when Trump was in office, everyone would call him Hitler or a Nazi. When Obama was in office, people would call him Hitler and a Nazi. I remember actually going to a rally in DC when Obama was in office, not to take part. I was just there to interview some people. And it was kind of like a very, I would say, right-wing rally. It was supposed to be this idea of liberty and everything. But, when you get there, like, what was her name? Michelle Bachmann, I think that was her name.
Yeah.
He was spouting off some nonsense. And I was there with someone who had a video camera and an intern. And the intern was this young woman. She was probably 20 years old, had never even taken the train to DC. And I don't even know if she'd ever been on a train. She was very sheltered. And we get down there, and someone had this big picture of Obama with like the Hitler mustache and, giving a Heil Hitler and everything. And she's looking, she's literally, dude, she's freaking out. She's like, what is this? What are they doing? And I guess I'm so numb to it now, like I'm just like, oh, it's just, some person who's fucking nuts and, hates Obama. So he's going to compare Obama to Hitler. And she's like, but that makes no sense. I'm like, yeah, I know. I get it. But she was very, and it was very, I feel bad saying this. It was funny because she was also Jewish, and she was noticeably frightened by what she saw. And I was like, man, like when you look at a situation like that, we trivialize what it means to be an actual Nazi. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As opposed to, and this is kind of, well, if we're going to talk about Nazis, let's talk about Nazis,
Yeah, let's do it.
Here's one thing that I don't understand, the whole neo-Nazi thing, okay? Like, at some point, someone said, okay, I'm a Nazi, but, like, neo's, like, new, right? So, like, but I'm a new Nazi. So what is the difference between a neo-Nazi and an old Nazi? Like, in my head, I'm thinking, like, there's probably, like, some, like, old, like, 90-year-old, like, former SS guard who meets this guy, and he says, I'm a Nazi too. And the guy's like, you're not a fucking Nazi, man. We were gassing Jews by the thousands and everything. He's like, how many Jews have you gassed? So it's kind of like, it was like the old versus the new, like the granddad and the grandkid. And he's like, you haven't done shit, And the other guy's like, well, I'm just a new Nazi, like, I go out, I don't actually want to gas any Jews. I just want to, like, have a Hitler or have a swastika tattoo and scare him and maybe try to, like, punch him or something. Like, the old guy's like, you fucking neo-Nazis, fucking pussies,
Yeah.
pussy Nazis. You're not a real Nazi.
Yeah, dude, it's almost like offensive to refer to a neo-Nazi as a Nazi because like it's just so criminal on a smaller level. I think when I think of it, the music genre side of me comes out and I'm like, I don't know if I like the idea of neo-Nazi. What about post-Nazi? It's post-Nazism. It's over. You're just still like it's something that like came of it in the after effect. This is a funny aside. This has only a little bit to do with anything we're talking about, but it has to do with Hitler. And it's I've been listening to like every I go through like spurts where for like a week or two I'll get hardcore into punk, and then for a week or two hardcore into rap. I'm like that type of thing. And lately I've been listening to some punks. So like Dead Kennedys, where there's like Nazi punks, fuck off, and all that. And there's this band. This is just a silly little line, but it's funny and worth bringing up. I don't know if you've ever heard of the band The Vandals.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, so they had like the funny song about like my girlfriend's dead. Like he just tells everybody that his girlfriend's dead because they broke up, and he doesn't want to say that they broke up or what happened, so he just tells them all they're dead. But they have an album, and it's called Hitler Bad, Vandals Good. And it is just
Yeah.
so funny. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like Hitler Bad, kind of libertarians, good. That'll be our
Yeah.
slogan.
I wonder
um,
if anyone ever did that though, like the neo Nazis, like if they look back at like the OG Nazis, you know, and say, well, maybe if they did this differently or that differently, you know, I'm more of a woke Nazi, you know, like I'm a modern day woke Nazi. Like I would, it's just the whole concept of Nazism is so absurd that that people even take it seriously. When I see guys at these rallies with like the Nazi stuff and the Hitler stuff, I'm like, you're a fucking cartoon, you know? It's so. But then yet again, I mean, people still they sign up for that shit. I don't.
I'm so American and non sort of connected to like the idea of really understanding where like prejudice or that sort of framework of being so anti-Jewish that honestly when I meet somebody who's like seems like a skinhead sort of Nazi person, I just assume that there's almost no Jewish connection, and I just assume that they hate black people and Mexicans. Like I almost remove all Jewish context, and I'm like, oh wait, you're just like a white supremacist. Like you're like a cooler looking KKK person, like a less hillbilly Klansman is what you are. Because it's like,
The
I mean,
GQ version.
yeah, it doesn't even see it's lost so much context that I hardly understand. Like you said, it's like, what does it even mean, or what do you even do as a neo? Like, do you just have the tattoos and wear the clothing and have the viewpoints, and that's as far as you take it? But I guess that's as far as a lot of people take politics, is just having the view.
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, I think that's when it gets sketchy though. When people, you know, they start taking violent action, and you've
oh
seen.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's you see that shit all the time. I mean, if you look for it anyway, and I've certainly seen it. Um, the the weird thing is when I see someone and I know that like especially at shows like I see when I go to shows sometimes you meet somebody and you know they might have like a patch or something that's like an old like swastika patch or an SS patch, and your response is okay, you either don't fully understand what that is or you fully understand what it is and you're trying to parade it around, which is which is worse. I think the latter is worse. But you know, the thing about with Hitler, it wasn't just Jews. Like they exterminated Catholics, they exterminated gypsies, gay people. If you were even a little tan, like the possibility that you could have any black or brown in you, whatever, like you were just thrown into the camps too. It wasn't just Jews. You know, there were a lot of fucking people murdered. Um, so I think you're right. Like sometimes you see these Nazis and they're like, "Were you anti-Jewish? Or are you just like anti like anything that's not pure white?" Which is doesn't even fucking exist, by the way. There's no such thing as pure white.
I know. Yeah.
Everybody's got a little black in them.
I know. And then what I love is like, I guess this is like the woke or like the less like extreme is that I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of people like take the step back and they're like, well, I'm not a white supremacist or I'm not racist. I'm just a white separatist.
Oh
Have you heard
yeah,
that? White
yeah.
separatism? Oh, okay. That, yeah. Oh no, that's cool. Now that you say it that way,
Yeah,
you
that makes
sound
it
awesome.
okay.
Yeah. I do want to, we definitely will have to circle back to the tweet and the libertarian perspective on this, and just the vaccine type stuff in general, maybe, in the mandatory. There's a lot of discussion about this going on, which is probably why you said you didn't want to fully unpack all that is wrong with it, because
Right.
what I've been hearing people talk about is like, you know, the critique is to whether or not it's racist because, you know, to have the IDs to do this. And I've heard a lot of talk, but see, I don't follow these current events fully. So I don't know if I'm hearing things that have anything to do with this. That's why I feel like I'm the perfect filter for you and somebody who might be listening who doesn't follow current events, because I pay attention to a degree, but I get everything through scrolling social media, listening to the podcasts I listen to, and occasionally I have like news apps that pop up and I'll click and read. Typically, I just see the headlines. But well, you know what? I guess this is probably my perfect question for you. And if we get back to the Hitler stuff, we can have more fun. Oh,
Hitler
you
stuff
know,
is always fun.
actually, I will say this. I'll ask you this, and then I'll ask more about the other side of it. I am curious if you think there's a part of me. See, I always try to like understand where somebody's coming from, and my first thing is to realize somebody's ignorance, and then try and figure out what they're working with, like what is their influence, what maybe their parents were like, who that, you know, I've met some really good kids who have like an uncle who was like a prison Nazi sort of thing. And then they sort of like embody that because they think this is their badass, cool uncle that like patted them on the shoulder and tried to teach them to be tough and all this. And they just want to embody that. And I really do try to empathize, which is something we've touched on I think towards the end of one of our episodes, is to try to understand where people are coming from, try to find the common ground and learn from it. Just like I said, if I was talking to a serial rape, the rapist thing, you know, I would still have the conversation. I would want to figure out where they're coming from to a degree. And when I hear this sort of thing, it reminds me of the gothic me that paraded serial killers around in a way. Like I was the kid who thought it was cool to have the John Wayne Gacy painting.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can remember the swastika forehead stuff with Charles Manson. And as like a young kid, I don't know if I ever literally put that on my forehead, but I remember thinking stuff like that was cool. And when you think of how immature and how ignorant and how underdeveloped some people
Right.
are, do you have any room for empathy for people of that sort of way? Or is it just no? Like, is there any saving
Yeah.
grace?
It's, you know what? It's a good question, and it's hard because when it's personal, it becomes personal, you know, and that was stupid. When it's personal, it becomes personal. What the fuck does that mean?
It is what
Um,
it is.
I'm trying to be so smart. You know, I think that when I see somebody talking about Hitler, or like supporting the ideas of Nazis and just anybody that supports the idea of white supremacy, you know, my immediate reaction is one of like anger and violence, you know. And but I definitely been in situations, particularly when it's been with younger people, that I do take that into consideration because I know they probably don't know any better. And I've definitely, when I was on the road, have talked to people that, not even knowing that I'm Jewish. How the fuck could you not know I'm Jewish? My fucking last name, I look like I'm the poster boy for what a Jewish person's supposed to look like. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So, but they didn't know, and they would make these comments that were just like, not only offensive, but just so, just not. Um, it was clear they didn't understand what they were saying. So I would have conversations. What do you mean by that? And I try to keep it like really chill and try to almost in a way kind of pull them in a little bit, you know. And so just so they understand what it is they're saying. I don't know if I had any effect on those kids or not. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I don't know. But when I see someone like my own age or someone older and they're spouting that shit, I have to walk away, man. You know, like I I've never been in a fight in my life. I've been punched one time in my life. I was in a bar fight. It's an interesting story. I'll tell you about it one day, or maybe later. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But there's definitely been situations where I've seen those people, and for a few seconds, I'm looking around. I'm like, I could take that bottle over the head right now, You know, like it would not bother me in the least. Or when I see these Nazis getting punched, there's like videos of people punching Nazis. I'm like, cool. You know, and that's the worst really fucking thing to do. I don't know if you ever saw that guy. He there's this dude, I forgot his name. He was on Rogan one time where he like would he's a black guy and he went and befriended guys in the Klan.
The
And he's
the,
like
the musician player, right? He was a musician.
brilliant musician, great blues player, blues pianist. Um, and like his story was blew me away. I'm like, you have to have some serious fucking patience to do some shit like that. And I don't have it. Usually, you know, it's always I got to get out of here because this is not going to end well if I stay and I leave.
Yeah, that I'll tell you what. Just for the record, I wish I remember that guy's name. It wouldn't be that hard to
Errol
Google and
something
find it out. That was a beautiful episode.
was.
That guy was just such a beautiful soul, and to hear his story,
Mhm.
it definitely changed me a little bit. You know what I think about as somebody that thinks about ego a lot, something I've recognized in people as they change. And I have a good friend who works at a tattoo shop, and he happened to get into a tattoo shop where they were pretty much like bikery, not skinhead to the extreme, but they definitely were a little radical and
Mhm.
at the very least enjoyed a good black joke. You know what I mean? But they probably were a bit more extreme about it than I was ever told to. And this guy has had political views that have shifted over the years in different directions. And I've watched people like him who, as they get more sensible and as they realize their own way, I've seen how heavy and how emotional and how difficult it is to peel back from the ways you were and see yourself for who you've been. And the further you go, the older you get and the harder you are in your ways to come to terms with the fact that the person you have been is so fucking bad, is such a monster. It's like something that everybody who's not in your group thinks is the lowest of the low. Like, who doesn't think like hitting a Nazi in the face is like a bad idea? You know what I mean? Like, almost everybody can get behind like shaking the shit out of one of them people. And to realize that is you, and to have to know that the person you have been all this time is so wrong, is difficult. It's like finding somebody that's in a fake martial art and them having to admit all of the work, all of the knowledge, the framework of who they are is wrong. They're only going to be able to peel back so much, and peel back so much at one time. They have to come to terms with it in waves, and it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of therapy. And I see that a lot of them, you can have the conversation. You wondered if you got through to somebody. Well, you know what? You probably made a connection and you probably did get through to that person. But what happens tomorrow when they're in the atmosphere with their other friends who are spewing other bullshit, and they're sharing drinks with the person who's making the comments and saying the bullshit? Now they're getting pulled in the other direction. And if 99% of their existence is that, and you're the 1%, you might have gotten through to them to a degree, but they immediately pulled back and drew back for that. Somewhere on that ride home, they had an argument within their head, and they no longer wanted to hate the person that they were, and they became that monster again. I think that happens with a lot of people. I think it happens with people who carry demons and perversions and all sorts of weird things, some things that a lot of people have it in them, you know, that they carry these sorts of things that they hide. Not that everybody hides the fact that they're a, you know, neo-Nazi. If they are, sometimes they wear like a freaking badge, like a, you know, they are a vegan or something, you
Proud
know.
of. Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely depends. But that's something people don't talk about enough, is that to really change the identity of somebody and to make them come to terms with that sort of thing, it's very difficult for them. You have to remember, this is their life and what they've stood up for so long. Just like it's so hard to take somebody who's a Democrat and, or somebody who like believed in Obama, for instance. Like, I was on the Obama train in the beginning. I was young. I loved the way he talked. I mean, the guy he was going against originally just didn't seem that cool. What do I know? I just know that I like this guy who seems different, and he sort of seems more like my kind of guy. But 90 something percent innocent drone strike deaths later, and all of the lies later, and Guantanamo Bay still open later, and warmongering later, I had to swallow the difficult pill of admitting that I was ignorant. I didn't know better. I understood why it happened. I was fortunately young. Remember, I said it was difficult the older you are. You even touched on that note. It was easier for me to take a step back because shit, just 5 years before that, I mean, I was a kid, so it was only so many years of being, but I mean, I was about it. And I could only imagine in that. I'm only so ashamed by that. I would be really ashamed if I told you that I was a neo-Nazi or something.
That would make this whole this whole relationship very uncomfortable.
Talk about a dynamic, huh? Imagine if that was me and you. Yeah, did you guys, because there was a tongue-in-cheek, I don't know how deep you want to get into this. It's not embarrassing because there's actually a story behind it, and you don't have to worry about telling the story. And it's actually a song that existed, I believe, before you were in the band. But there was always that line, like the albino rhino, when the band members get picked up by this people in a van, I guess in York or wherever it is.
Yeah.
I can't remember fully. And they talk about like this skinhead sort of group, and that like that's the theme of the song. Now, was there ever a part of you that felt like was there mixed anything being a part of something like that, even as a Jewish person? How did you feel?
Well, because I knew the story. It was
Right.
basically, I wasn't in the band at the time. It was before my time. But yeah, they were playing a gig, and the van broke down, and these dudes, these like not Nazi, I don't know, we're talking about Nazis so much. They weren't Nazis.
Yeah.
They were just these skinhead dudes that had this white beat up van that they called the albino rhino. Has nothing to do with like white supremacy or racism or anything like that. They were just like these cool skinhead dudes that gave them a ride home. That's all it was. But yeah, people do that. People would look at that and immediately think that. I mean, we definitely had that question, in interviews sometimes, or people would just ask, what the fuck is that all about? But it was completely like there was nothing to it. It's just like, yeah, these really cool skinhead dudes gave him a ride home in a van that they called the albino rhino. That's all it was.
And here's something that's non-prejudice in a way. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who could like analyze it and claim that there's but you get what I mean. But even somebody like the front man that had the themes that you guys had that would cover all sorts of topics, I took note that there were a lot of times live he didn't want to say enjoy a skinhead bliss. He would not say that line a lot of times. There must have been some sort of mixed feelings about projecting this image that didn't represent you guys, despite the fact that the themes and lyrics were all over the place. And that's not necessarily your question to field, but it seems like you could even see just something so tiny like that. And it goes back to the idea of this moron from Kentucky representing libertarians, and that you might get associated just from this buzzword or just from this one questionable thing. Now you're seen as whatever blank thing that extreme I don't know if you want to call it social justice. What do you call it? Is that what it?
No, because I think social justice is I think the idea of social justice has been tarnished. I like the idea of social justice. In fact, I would argue that libertarianism is the party of social justice, because to me, social justice can really only happen in a free society, where libertarianism really advocates for a honest free market, personal sovereignty, and just the basic fundamentals of liberty. And all those things benefit the idea of social justice. When you have someone saying, like, say someone is offended by something, and you say, well, I'm a social justice warrior, and I think what you said was wrong, and you should be out of here, and you should no longer talk. Where's the justice in that? There's no justice in that. So yeah, it's weird. Like I definitely have friends that always want to talk shit about social justice warriors, and I'm like, I wish it wasn't hijacked by people that really have zero interest in social justice and really have more interest in pushing their own agenda. I don't know. You had a question, and I fucking went off on a tangent about social justice.
That actually reminds me of this whole predicament again. The idea that we're going to let a few extreme left morons who are stupid social justice warriors ruin the notion of social justice, which is obviously an amazing notion, which is obviously an amazing thing. And what something we talked about before the show was the idea of the social identity of libertarians being so vast and dynamic in comparison to other political parties. And I think it comes down to the fact that you said that they are more socially free in a way, or it's the idea of having this freedom, obviously with certain sort of regulations so stuff doesn't get out of hand or too out of whack. But that is probably why it's so hard to put your finger on. Like, I know throughout this episode, libertarians has kind of seen more conservative in ways than left, but I don't even know like what I could say as an outsider looking in. It's very hard for me to figure out what I see as being left or right socially about libertarianism. And it almost makes me think that it's like trying to find the equality through the means of like pulling back from things that force the identity in a more free kind of peaceful space would be the ultimate goal, so that anybody can have any sort of view and it's not like forced in your face. I'm not articulating that well, but I guess the question I would have, unless you have a point to make off of that, would be, how do you see, spanning from a tree hugging libertarian
Mhm.
to very conservative, but maybe the type of conservative that wants to make the government scale down a little bit, maybe like focus a bit more on our country as far as certain things. Like that reminds me of like the Ron Paul sort of conservative, maybe, which is
Mhm.
kind of libertarian, I assume.
Yeah,
What do
absolutely.
you think of social politics, and what are like the hard things that libertarians are identified by socially, or what is maybe the overlap between left and right side of things socially and
Mhm.
libertarian? If you had like a Venn diagram, what would be the overlap?
I mean, I see that's tough to say because the left, I would have said 10, 15 years ago, it would have been closer. But I feel like the left has gone down the conservative road of wanting to censor everything, or feeling like that they have the ultimate say of how things should go. So we talk about like the social side of libertarianism, or whatever libertarianism is, depending upon who you talk to. Um, we can look at like certain social issues that probably should not have anything to do with legislation or laws, but the politicians make them laws. So to give you an example of what I'm talking about, let's think about porn. Okay, in some states, I don't know if it's still like that, but in some states there used to be laws against what you could show in porn, or where you could, this is before the internet, where you could sell it, and what was considered appropriate and what wasn't. It was just like a body of people that would decide what it is that you're allowed to watch. What that has nothing to do with what politicians should be doing. Lawmakers have no business telling you what you should watch, or how much of whatever it is you want to watch, or how fucking perverted the stuff is that you want to watch or not perverted. I don't. And here's the interesting thing: is like I've always been a champion of sex worker rights and the rights of sex workers to do whatever they want. Obviously, it's not, as long as they're not hurting anybody. So in the world of porn, um, you know, I've always been I always hate when people like equate porn stars to like people that are beneath them. Like when Trump got caught with Stormy Daniels, and it's just like, oh, well, a porn star is going to bring him down, and like belittling her for what she did. I'm like, who the fuck are you? How many people probably watched her porn? It's so ridiculous that that they should be treated as almost subhuman. You know how many fucking people watch porn? Everybody fucking watches porn practically. But if someone wants to do porn, then they're not good people, or they're the butt of a joke. Why are they the butt of a joke? What did Because they're earning a living? She had to make money to pay for her daughter. Fuck are these people? And that's when you get these lawmakers that are going to say, well, we're going to have a law against this because we think it's immoral, or our religious beliefs and ideals dictate that this is immoral. Forget the idea of the separation of church and state. they don't care about that when it comes to that kind of stuff, you know. And not to, I guess I have friends that work in this industry. I have friends that are porn stars. I have friends that are strippers. I have friends that are prostitutes, you know, and they're all awesome people, and I love them all. And
God,
the
you got
idea,
cool friends.
I have fucking awesome friends. And you know what's fun? I have one friend who's a porn star, and you know, I love talking about porn with her just because we both make fun of like all the absurdities of it. You know, like if you think about it, how absurd is most porn these days? Like if you go online, like all the shit that's on there. I actually saw this one thing. I don't know if you're saying, there's a thing called smoking. Like that's a kink. Like dudes that want to like have sex with women while the women are smoking. Here's what I don't get. That's a lot of pressure. Okay, like how can I explain this? It's kind of like it would be like that. That's like that takes away from what's happening. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I'm having a hard time explaining this. Give me a second. I gotta put this in words here. Okay, so there's a porn category called smoking, and it's basically dudes having sex with women while they're smoking. You with me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think
Okay.
at least like 7 to 8 years ago, I came across something like this. So
Oh,
I've known about
I
it.
thought it was relatively new. Okay,
Well, it's
so
probably a bigger thing. I mean, I think the biggest thing right now is everybody's somebody's step sibling and sibling, but
I know.
smoking's probably a far number two.
Right, right. I know. Well, but the smoking thing is kind of like that affects me in my performance. You know what I mean? Like if I was with a woman that wanted to do that. I mean, I get that
Yeah.
I'm not all that impressive in the set.
Oh, I
You
get
know
what
what
you're
I mean?
saying. Yeah,
But
because
if
it's
a
almost
woman,
like a distraction in a way, or like,
yeah, if a
yeah.
woman lights up, okay, if a woman lights up a cigarette while I'm trying to get her off, I'm just packing it up and going home. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, yeah, yeah. Keep going, but I want to relate this to something.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
I'd almost prefer that she like look at her watch. You know, yeah, it's a mood killer. Look at your watch, a mood
Uh-huh.
killer. But it's one move, okay? You look at your watch, you get back to it. A cigarette, it's like you got to have one nearby. You got to get out of the pack, find a lighter, light that thing while I'm flailing around like a malnourished seal. That fucking kills the mood, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, 100%. It's kind of like it's one thing to be a little bored for a second or a little distracted for a second, but it's like a constant reminder of like, are you done yet? Or is this over? Like, especially because people associate cigarettes as something you do afterwards.
Right.
So this is a part of the show that if my mom is listening, um, I have never really been around too many like hardcore party types. I never did any sort of drugs when I was younger. I've never partied with things like cocaine and pills and things I think are dirty or like very whatever. So, but one time I hung around a girl and she was responsible. She had a great job. She liked to do, and it was occasional. She had it very under control. She liked to do cocaine sometimes, right? And it would just be something maybe no more than once every couple weeks, and she probably went months without doing it. But I would remember that if we were having sex and it was a night that she wanted to do coke, it would be so offensive to me, and it like totally killed my ego if 10 to 15 minutes into like some, or if she needed to take a break to run and do a line, or
Uh-huh.
it that wouldn't happen, and I could see her, I could sense her distraction as the high was wearing off, because it's such a short-lived thing, and I was so in tune with her headspace, and she went from this lively whatever to like being a little flat depending on the timing, because you need that consistent thing. I even notice it in conversation. I've been to bars where obviously a lot of people are doing cocaine, and it's like all of a sudden that distraction, and that's what it reminded me of when you said the cigarette in the middle of sex. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I totally get that. Speaking of porn, though, by the way, we were talking earlier about stand-up comedy and potential bits that you know you were talking about being interested in it. I used to do stand-up pretty regularly, and I'll tell you, man, if I got back into stand-up comedy, I think the first thing I would write is about 10 minutes on the state of porn. And number one, how weird it is we don't talk about it. And number
Mhm.
two, how fucking crazy of a world we are going to be living in after spending such a long period of time where everybody is jerking off, thinking about their fucking family members and stuff. Like, it's a very weird time to like,
Yeah.
I'm not into that. Like, I'll put up with it if the chick's hot or whatever, but I'm skipping through the drama, or I'm like, "Ah, la, 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 la." Like, I don't want to hear it. I don't, you know, step siblings, one thing, cousins, weird, but like, come on, this. So why does everybody have to be a mom, a sibling? It makes you wonder what comes first, the chicken or the egg. And see, I'm the type of person that when I get stoned, this takes me down the deep end. I start having grand conclusions like this is pretty dark in a way, but it makes me think a lot more people than we could ever realize were molested, were victims of sexual abuse, that more people than we realize are perverted in ways we never realized. And it's such a big thing, and it's so not understood and discovered. And it's part of the reason why when people get in high positions of power, you find high amounts of people acting out in this nature. And now everybody's jerking off thinking about this kind of stuff. Like, how can we not have a problem when that is like, talk about red flag. Talk about red flag. If you were just to analyze the social norms of our culture and you were to see all of this weird stuff go on with, like, higher ups in different communities, and then you were to see the types of things that we were sexually into, and it's like, well, it's just porn, who cares, it's just porn, and it's not. No, dude, you were like hypnotizing yourself to be into the idea of having sex with your fucking mom.
Well,
That is bizarre.
it's definitely going to affect younger boys, and I think that's a really big issue. But I would say that, you know, this is a reflection of supply and demand. Those videos would not exist if people did not want to see them. So
Right.
clearly, there are a lot of people that want to see them for whatever reason. I don't know. And I would also argue that these are all probably things that people have always thought about. When I say people, not everybody, but certain people have always thought about. It's just now because you can get anything you want online. It's there. How many people are into that shit? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I
Goes
think
back
all
to
our
Oedipus.
well, listen. I mean, there is truth about that. There's truth to that.
Yeah.
And I don't really know. I'm never gonna knock someone's kinks, okay? Because it's not my business. It's not my job to do that. Um, I don't fucking understand some shit. Like I don't, like I said, I don't understand the smoking thing. You know, I don't understand. You know what I understand? I don't understand. So on some porn sites, like there's always like an advertisement, right? And there's a woman that'll come on, and it's always the same voice. They go, "Hi guys," you know what I'm talking about? You ever
Hmm.
see? And first of all, no woman I've ever been with has been like, "Hi guys," like ever. Like that doesn't. I've never heard anyone talk like that, so I don't understand why that's a turn on. And second of all, it's plural. It's like, "Hi guys," so that means there's other dudes in the room. I can barely, you know what I mean? Like I can barely last 3 minutes with a beautiful woman. Not meant to mention the time it takes me to get going, and now I got to think about like Tom, Dick, and Harry back there just watching me. I'm like, God, you know what I mean? It's
Oh my
like,
God.
God, come on.
I just
But
thought of
like
the
some
idea.
dudes must love that shit. Some dudes must love
Yeah.
like when a girl is like, "Hey guys."
Imagine this. All right. So you're at like a porn theater, they're playing a movie,
Uh-huh.
and the narrating voice keeps referring to the audience as a whole. So like you're in there jerking off, and they're addressing the audience as if it's the entire audience. So you're just
Right.
constantly aware that there's a lot of you Pee Wee Hermaning it up in the audience. That's what that immediately made me go. It made me think of like phone sex operators too. Remember that when you would just, I
Uh-huh.
remember being a kid, like calling the numbers or whatever, like the 1-800 big tits or whatever. I would just make up things. You would just know that these letters probably add,
Mhm.
you would type in things and see what would happen, and you wouldn't have to pay to just hear them. And it was that voice you just did reminded me
Yeah.
exactly of that. But yeah, it's the ads. You know what it is? What that is? It's just bad acting. It's like when you came in and you did, this is my radio voice. This is my podcast voice. It's honestly, everybody's a bad actor. This is the politician voice. Like, why can't a politician just talk like me and you are talking right now? Why
Right.
can't they just be honest? Why does it have to be a cadence? Why does it have to be an act? Why does a salesman have to talk to me like a salesman? Why can't we just use our normal person, I'm speaking from the inside voice? Why
Hmm.
does it have to be some filter, you
That's
know?
a, that's a good question, and I wonder if it has something to do with how people respond to things. So we have short attention spans. If obviously, like, clickbait is a big thing now, not because someone decided this is how we're going to do things. It's because that's how people responded. Again, that's the free market in action. People get pissed off about clickbait. Clickbait wouldn't exist if people didn't respond to it. So it exists. So I mean, in terms of like, what were we talking about? Something about.
The cadences and the voices and
Oh
the
yeah,
different,
yeah.
like the filter. Yeah.
Right. So I think about like some politicians. So if you think of like Bernie, okay, I like Bernie. I'm not a fan of some of his policies, particularly on taxation. Um, but like I think we talked about this before, and I always felt like his intentions were honorable. And when he talked, I never felt like he was talking to me as a politician. I felt like he was just talking to me as like this crazy uncle that I had. Or like, but then I think of like Justin Amash, who I think is probably one of the most underrated lawmakers we ever had, and when he ran for president for like 3 days, when he was talking, he was like talking like us. And when I saw him talking, I realized this isn't going to work because he's not a showman. In order to get elected, you have to be somewhat of a showman. I mean, maybe except for Biden, he's not much of a showman. I don't know if he knows
Oh
where
my
his head,
God. Yeah.
but for the most part, I think you have to be a showman, and that's unfortunate because I think maybe there could be some really good contenders out there. I think Justin Amash would actually be a really great. I think he could make a great president, but he doesn't have that showmanship. Like he doesn't know how to work the crowd, which and I think Rogan's talked about this too. And not to keep bringing back Rogan, but he makes a lot of good points. He's like, when we elect somebody for president, we're electing like whoever we think the cool kid is. Whoever. It's a popularity contest. Who's the coolest kid? I don't know
Yeah.
if Biden or Trump are particularly cool, but but it makes a lot of sense. If you put all
Yeah.
those people up on the stage, when you think about all the people that ran on the Democrat ticket, okay, and you had all these people up on stage, there were few people up on that stage that to me made any sense. Tulsi Gabbard made sense to me, okay, but when I saw Biden speak, when I saw Kamala Harris speak, when I saw who else was running,
Mm.
um, not
Did you
Yang,
say, yeah? Well, that's who I was going to say, but I don't think he made his. Honestly, I don't
but I mean,
know.
but like there were quite a few of them. They're just kind of like it's just so typical. Like I get it, you're a politician. They do this thing. It's like we're here for the American people. We have to get back. We have to get back on track, and we got to care about the middle class and everything. It's like how many fucking times are we gonna listen to this and believe it?
Yeah.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 72 times, shame on all of us.
Right. Do you know why I made this correlation last episode about how, at least I think it was last episode, but it couldn't have been that many episodes ago. Now, the
Yeah.
idea of how the somewhat socially and the Bernie Sanders thing is going to be the more specific correlation, is I kind of find that it's the antithesis. So there is an exact opposite way in which they're going about it. But the reason somebody like you and a lot of libertarians probably can relate to where Bernie's coming from or feel where he's coming from more is because he is taking a step back from the current way things are with somewhat similar intentions that I believe a lot of libertarians probably are, speaking in a more real sense, not playing politics the same way everybody else does. It's a more honest juxtaposition, and there's a lot more in common. And then when you get further, it's why I say that there seems to be an odd common ground between the people I know who are anarchy people and Marxism people. You know,
Mhm.
I kind of think that the libertarian and the Bernie Sanders people are buffers along the way and like somewhat in between that sort of thing. But there is some sort of common ground with Bernie Sanders and his sort of delivery. It does remind you of a left Ron Paul in a way, the way he's shaking it up, the way he's being honest, he's saying things that they almost want to mute. Um, you know, and not that there's really not much more to take it, but that was just something I thought of that I think about a lot. I think about those parallel opposites, that yin and yang with the political parties, which especially the ones that are like juxtaposition to the way things are, the current
Mhm.
standpoint. So all these third party sort of things. Um, what did you think? And obviously this is a little dated. What did you think of Gary Johnson as a representative and as a voice for the Libertarian Party? Because he was one I was fairly familiar with.
Mhm.
Um, and I liked what he did in New Mexico with, it sounded like he had a great stuff with like the unemployment, and he seemed to do a lot of cool things. But I don't know what as somebody that's more involved, what did you think of him?
So I think Gary Johnson had a certain a personality to him more so than some of the other people that have run on the libertarian ticket, and I think that helped him quite a bit. I think Gary Johnson actually, I think the the last time he ran, I think he got like one of the highest. I could be wrong, but I think he got like one of the highest percentages in terms of libertarian candidates ever. Could have been a result. A lot of people hated Obama at the time, but it could also just be the result of, I think, I talked to him a couple of times and I've seen him speak, and he's not bad. You know, I think he comes across as a normal guy. He's not intimidating, but he's also not cowardice. Um, I think the problem with him though is I don't think he had the ability to structure his arguments during debates that made him seem competent. I don't think that he's incompetent. He just came across as a little incompetent when he had to go against when he was debating some of these the other candidates. And I think this is something we should talk about more too. Is how, I mean, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm just so disappointed in like how the Libertarian Party is run. It's like it's almost the Libertarian Party. It's almost like the Libertarian Party has said, "Look, we know we're not going to win, so we're just gonna die. We're gonna phone it in, or maybe we'll do something. We'll try to shake it up a little bit." I mean, I don't know if you ever like watching the libertarian events or when they have the people that are running. I don't remember half their names, but you get some guys on there that are just like, "I'm gonna get in office and I'm gonna burn the White House down," and blah blah blah, and they say stupid shit like that. You got that Vermin Supreme guy who's fucking hilarious, but it's like, who's gonna take you seriously if you like libertarians? Be like, "I love Vermin Supreme. He's great." I'm like, "Yeah, he's great." He's doing no justice at all to Libertarian Party if you want to be taken seriously. And I think about Joe Jurgensen, who was like very much qualified. Um, but again, it's like when I see her speak, when I saw her speak, it's like she's not motivating me, And then the Libertarian Party, I don't know if it's because of lack of funding. But man, it's just like you guys are fucking dragging your feet, you
Yeah.
know. Even when there was a libertarian that was running in New York, I forgot his name now. He was on Rogan too, but and I interviewed him when he was running for governor. And, I mean, he had the qualifications, but he didn't have the answers. When I would talk to him, he didn't have solid answers. Libertarian Party's got to put some fucking real qualified people on there that know how to debate, that know how to answer questions, and know how to play the game to get in there. Otherwise, Libertarian Party is always going to be that they might steal some votes away from the Republicans or the Democrats. I'm like, how the fuck is that enough? That's not enough. Then just fucking end it then. If that's your only purpose is to disrupt things, what's the fucking point?
Yeah, no, it's right. The people that it reminds me of, say, like a John F. Kennedy sort of swagger, or
Mhm.
just somebody like even how an Obama who was in some ways underqualified politically, but had this other sort of new thing and strong belief and strong message, and then even somebody like Donald Trump who had this strong sense of belief and
Mhm.
strong projection, like and just strong like conviction. they need somebody that's a little bit more fiery, combative in a healthy way, and
Mhm.
somebody that really is passionate and just gives this level of belief, like we're gonna change this shit now. And even if it's a bit hyperbolic, whatever you would want to call it, if it's sensationalized or whatever, as long as it's the message or the thing that you believe in, that's what the party needs to take it to the next level. Ron Paul had a tiny sliver of that in him too, for sure. He was willing to just lay it out there and be strong about it. But even him, it's like people knew he didn't have a chance. And if your best sell is, oh, well, maybe election after election will build more steam, and then 16 or 20 or 24 years from now, maybe the party will be built up big enough. No. I think too that maybe for these third party sort of people, it's to build steam during the off season. Like,
Mhm.
don't wait until, like, make it known that you want to be president 3.5 years out, and build your campaign and start getting
Yeah.
momentum going years ahead, and do the interviews now, and build some celebrity status as far as people will want you in the debates. People will want to involve you. That was one of the biggest things with Gary Johnson. His last thing was he struggled being invited to the debates. He wasn't put on the, and he was, I forget if at this point, I guess it was 8 years ago. Maybe he ran when Trump was president, but honestly, it's been so long. It might have been 8 years ago. I don't know if that math adds up, but that was a big thing with him. Was getting on, was getting on the platform to talk. Man, there was another guy. I don't think this guy was libertarian. Maybe he was Green Party. Who do you remember when there was a guy running and he had trouble getting on debates, but he was the UFO guy? This goes back a ways. There was a guy. It doesn't matter. We could
Uh,
answer that the next episode then, if it's even important. There was a candidate who was kind of wild and out there, but he had all this like UFO sighting stuff in his history, and he was kind of like a kook in a way. And it kind of made him damning. I forget his name, or even I don't even know if he was libertarian. To answer your question, I haven't followed much with it since then. I followed it and watched a lot, and I definitely would have said when Gary Johnson was popular and trying to make his big thing back in the Ron Paul days, all of that, like right after the Obama, like got in all the 8 years of Obama, I would have identified as libertarian.
mhm.
And it's not that I don't, it's just I don't identify as much. I don't really know what I identify anymore. I identify as fairly just not apathetic, but just I don't know what hope there is, where we need somebody who can bring that hope out of the people who are third party types, because
Yeah.
it's not enough, like you said, to just sit here and say, well, we can get a few votes, we can maybe get a couple percent or whatever. That's not good enough. You can't be satisfied with that. That's not the fighting spirit. You need to get out there and make big points. You know what really pissed me off about Bernie Sanders was that he was never willing to call out his own party for screwing him. If I was that man, I would
Yeah.
have blew up Hillary Clinton and the Democratic spot. I would have said, screw you people. I would have ranted. If you're a man of conviction and sincerity and you got screwed not only once, but twice the way that man did, it makes you wonder if behind closed doors he is playing politics, if he is a part of the whole thing more than we realize. Because
Mhm.
why wouldn't he be more almost like Trump-esque about the way he reacts to this stuff?
I think he probably is playing the long game. He probably realized if I make a big stink about this, I'm never going to get anywhere on the next round. So that's probably why he didn't go. And he had enough people going to bat for him too that it's almost like he didn't need to. I think. Um, you know, the one thing about the Libertarian Party too is that sometimes you see people that are running for office, whether it be for the president or local office, whatever it is. And I've definitely gone to my fair share of local debates when they have a libertarian on the ticket. And almost always they're so out of their fucking minds, and they're so like, they're not, you can't come at it. it's like we're talking about young Nazis. You know, if I see a young Nazi, if I come at that person aggressive and start hassling them, never going to get through to them. But if I take that person and say, let's talk for a minute, I might be able to get through to that person. I think that the Libertarian Party needs to support uh, candidates that will do that. So when you have people running for the Libertarian Party or for president as libertarians, and I've seen the debates that they've had when it's like 5 or 6 libertarian candidates. Um, Dude, they come at it so strong. I'm gonna take down the Fed. I'm gonna do this, and it's like very, very, like I understand the argument. I get it, but you're not gonna get into that house if you show up with a flamethrower. You
Yeah.
know, if you want to get into that house, you need to show up with ideas that people can wrap their heads around. I think about that when it was like, okay, if I was running for office as a libertarian, and people would say, well, "What are you about?" I can't do this in just like a soundbite, And I know some things would appeal to some people and some things wouldn't, but you have to be honest. Like I could say to the left, like obviously, I'm an environmentalist. Like I think that it's absurd that we treat our water, soil, and air as if it's trivial. So that's a real concern for me. Also, a woman's right to choose is very much a real issue for me. I think that a woman absolutely does have the right to choose. That's personal sovereignty. But at the same time, I'm not going to be like I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment, and I'm not going to play both fucking sides. That's the problem. Everyone wants to play the one side or the other, and libertarians in some sense I feel like some of them have done that, particularly on the local level. When a lot of times I think they're just conservative Republicans that are trying to use the libertarian philosophy to get in, but they're really not libertarians. They're just conservatives that like the idea of libertarianism when it applies to what their agenda is. Now I get it. I get that if you can't if you're pissing off the Republicans and you're pissing off the Democrats, what chance do you have? But what chance do you have anyway? I mean, what has the Libertarian Party done in terms of affecting things? I mean, yes, I would argue that Ron Paul and Gary North have definitely affected things to the point where it's probably leaked into Congress a little bit. So people are maybe taking some of these ideas more seriously. But man, Libertarian Party's got to get more aggressive in terms of how they play the game, not in terms of we're fucking anarchists and we're going to burn everything down and we don't need everything. It's just like that doesn't work. It's never worked. So change your strategy. You're a fighter, right? So like if you're
Yeah.
in a situation and you're grappling and you're in a situation where maybe you can't move your hip the way you need to move it, then you have to pivot. You have to change up your strategy.
Yes.
Isn't that the same thing, really? It's like,
Yeah.
unless you lose, unless you're okay with losing. I'm fucking not okay with losing. I hate losing. I know that's
Here's
not very
here's
vocal of me, but I don't like the idea of people say, "Oh, everyone's a winner." Bullshit. There's a winner and a fucking loser. I don't want to be a loser.
Yeah, I think here's the sweet spot of it all that people struggle with is if you're compromising your views to win, and the more it's doing it tastefully and ethically, it's trying to figure out how to compromise your approach and what you think so that you're not bringing the flamethrower, but you're also not playing politics to the point where you are the problems still,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like you want to be the good guy, you want to be the person of ethical of like good ethical standard, of good honesty, of Mr. Smith goes to Washington sort of thing, right? You want to be that person, but at the same time you want to play politics, which is why you can make it in at the local level because you can still be yourself and you can be honest to a degree and maybe make it up at pretty high state level government. But to my knowledge, I don't know that anyone has ever made it all the way to president without turning their lives over to the devil, without shaking hands with the devil. The people you need to shake hands with, the people you need to impress, and all of that. I mean, it's a lot of compromise. And that to me is the biggest problem with the state of our, whether it's lobbyism or whatever it is, whatever makes it evil, there is an indefinite, that something about high level politics, big government politics seems tainted and shaking hands with the devil to me.
but I think there's a difference between compromise and shaking hands with the devil. I don't think compromise is a bad thing. I mean, you're not going to get anything done if you don't know how to compromise. And I don't think compromise always leads to something bad. You know, there's a different shaking hands with the devil is kind of like, listen, someone tells you, I'm going to get you into office, I'm going to give you this money, but when you get in there, you got to hook me up. That's shaking hands with the devil. Compromise is like if you get into office and let's say that, I don't know, let's say that it's an immigration issue, okay? And you say, listen, I think what's going on at the border is fucking horrible. Um, we can't treat humans like this. It's not okay. And then someone says, well, we need a strong border, and this is the only way to do it. And the way I see it, it's like, well, the compromise is you and I need to go sit down and have a beer and let's figure this out. And let's not just walk
Yeah.
away and be like, well, you're on this side, you're on this side. If you can come together, there's got to be a way you can figure it out. There's always a fucking way if you're willing to do the work. Maybe that's the key here. Maybe all
Oh
these guys,
yeah.
politicians, they're just fucking lazy. They're lazy. They don't want to put in the work. And that's unfortunate.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They want to put in the work is when they want to fucking write up a bill that's 3,000 pages and send it over 5 minutes before they got to vote on it. They'll work their asses off to get that bill in front of you for 5 minutes before they got to vote on it. But yeah, anything of value, I don't know, man. And I'm not on the inside. Maybe there are things going on like that, but I've seen very little evidence of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems that there's definitely a way to go about it. There's a healthy level of compromise, and there's a way to do it while still standing up for. There's a way to do it, obviously, of ethical code. I just think that somebody needs to have the vision and the balls to do it right, and the
Yeah.
conviction it just seems like it's been so dirty to me in my lifetime. Big politics to me, when I look at somebody like the platform that Obama ran on, and then what happened, it makes me wonder, like, how does does this guy know what's about to happen while he's in office? Does he already know? And he's like, is it a manipulative thing ahead of time, or do you just have no choice but to be involved in the warmongering and all of
Yeah.
that? I mean, it's complicated. I guess we
You're
really
right.
just don't know.
We don't know. We're not privy to any of that information. So there's no fucking way to know. There's no
Right.
way. You'll never get an honest answer ever.
I think the
So
biggest fear is that the libertarian type parties, these fringe politics, they're the end of that. They're the end of corrupted, long ties in evil sort of government. I
what
think that.
the person? I mean, you could get a
Right.
libertarian
Yeah, you're right.
easily be coerced. I kind of feel like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, what happens if if I were to get into a situation like that and someone says, listen, you just fucking play the game, man. You and your family be hooked up for life. I don't think I could. I know I could never do that. I know that I could never trade my values for money or for power, because I think that I feel like very confident in saying that. But I don't know if that, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but I just don't,
Yeah,
and
you're
maybe it's just because my upbringing, like I just how I am. I mean, honestly, like I work in finance, dude. You know how much fucking money I could make if I was like doing shady shit? Be fucking loaded, dude. I've been offered a lot of shady deals and I've always turned them down. And I've definitely had people say, why are you turning that down? You could be fucking making a shit ton of money. It's like, well, it's not about the money. It's like, I would rather have a little bit of honor than a lot of fucking money, because you can earn money. You can't, honor's like, I mean, you got to earn that too, but it's money's easy to earn. Honor isn't.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, and you can lose, hey, you can lose money and get it back. You can make money at any time, but good luck regaining honor after a lifetime of, say, being a Nazi for a long time or any of that. You
Listen, I
know?
get it. I was a Nazi until I was 40, but I saw the light when someone gave me a bunch of money and said, "Don't be a Nazi anymore." I said, "Oh, sounds like a good deal to me."
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, my freaking
We should
dog.
do that, man.
Calm way down. My dog
We
is
should.
being obnoxious.
How so?
Oh, he's just over there whining at the door, but he's fine. He doesn't need to go outside, but
Oh,
he's just
fucking liberal.
jokeless. Yeah, I know.
I love
Yeah.
how like, liberals are the ones that are always called whining, and like I see plenty of fucking conservatives whine like little fucking bitches all the time. You ever watch Tucker Carlson? That guy
Oh
whines like
my God.
a bitch all the time.
The
I think that
worst.
I think that just out of spite, we should run for on the libertarian ticket. We should put our
What
name.
would be like the Daily Show combo, like the how they were, yeah, like us of the libertarian, dude. That would be epic if that ever came into fruition. No. Have you ever
I
thought
mean,
about running for something like that? No, I mean, obviously, maybe smaller scale or whatever.
I've definitely thought about running for office a couple of times, and I've had people approach me about it. Um, but I've never pursued it just because it's a pretty big time suck, you know. But as I get older, I start taking it a little bit more seriously because I don't know, man. I just maybe because I'm older and I know more now, but I just every time I watch these guys, I'm just like, God, what a fucking cesspool! Like, this
Yeah.
is not going to get better. Maybe there's something I can do to fix it. I don't know.
Do you remember touring with a band? There was a guy who was politically involved. I just can't remember if he was libertarian or not, but I believe he was. Do you remember playing with a band called Look What I Did? And there was a
Yeah.
front man named Barry with long
Mhm.
hair. Do you remember if he was libertarian? What was he? He was a
I heard
politician.
he was libertarian. I never. I left the band. I think right before they look what I did played that went on tour. I think that was like the first tour the band did after I was gone. But I remember
Oh,
seeing them. I thought they were a good band, and I remember reading some stuff about him that he was. I think he was libertarian,
it's
or
worth looking
libertarian.
into. It's a funny tie. It would be. I'm curious. I'll have to look into that a little more because I'm curious if he's still involved with that. That's just a funny link.
I
Um,
don't know anything about the guy. I mean, I except for seeing him, you
yeah.
know, play. Yeah, it's funny just talking about this. It's like, what does it take to do that? Like, what does it take to even if you're not if you have no chance in hell, just to shake things up? Like
Yeah.
what if I went to the Libertarian Party and said, listen, there's very little chance that you guys are going to support me, but I don't give a fuck because I believe in these principles, and I believe that we can do better. And if you're not going to do it, then maybe I'll do it.
How many people are willing to have the balls to do that? And how far would you actually go if you put your all into it? That's, I think people don't realize is I'm sure there's a lot of people who think they can shake feathers and go far and they don't amount to anything. But on the flip side, you probably don't realize how far you could potentially take something like that for real. I mean, it takes a lot of ambition, a lot of gumption, a lot of energy. And is it worth it at the end of the day? But I think it definitely is a rare breed that's willing to do it. And if as long as you're willing to put that energy out there, you never know where it would take you or how
I
much
know. I
reception
know.
you'd get.
It's funny because I remember my dad used to watch the football games and baseball games when I was a kid, and he would always yell at the TV, "What the fuck are you doing? Like, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that?" And I do that when I watch debates, like presidential debates. I'm just like, "What the fuck are you talking about? Like, you should have said this." And that's so. The fact that you just said that, I know you're lying. I know you're a fucking liar.
Hell yeah, I know, I know.
Dude, when Tulsi Gabbard called out Kamala Harris about her history on the drug war, and I knew it already, but when she called it out, I was like, "Fuck yeah!" Like someone needed to do that. And the fact that Kamala was able to skate away from that, really? How do you skate away from that? Well, I changed my mind. Okay, hey, listen, we all change our mind. I will not fault you for changing your mind, but the timing is suspect.
Yeah.
Like a year prior, you were like, "I'm putting moms in jail if their kids don't go to school." Now you're the fucking vice president. Are you fucking kidding me?
I know.
You know?
Ugh.
I
That
don't
the
know.
drug war is something we should talk about on a future episode. I thought of
Absolutely.
we definitely should spend time talking about fighting perspective at some point, and because a couple things we talked about had to do with fighting today, but the drug war would be something to obviously in future episodes
Mhm.
unpack a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. I tell you what, we've gone, I think over an hour, And I try to keep these things an hour because I
Yeah.
think people will lose they lose interest after a while. But dude, I swear to God, I could have these conversations all day. They get me fired up, you know. And it's like I want, I love the idea of people. Like pretty soon we're gonna have some guests on. Okay, so I've already been talking to some people that would like to be guests, and I'm looking forward to that because we can. These are people that we're gonna have on. They're not. Some of them, quite a few, aren't libertarians. Um, they maybe don't know anything about libertarianism, or maybe they don't like it for whatever reason. But I think their stories are interesting, and I think their stories are relevant to this idea of the liberty movement. So I'm looking forward to like having those people on so we can talk this way. Um, Not as like the Kentucky libertarian dude who's like, oh, this is some Nazi shit. You know what I mean? Like a legitimate, like, let's have an honest conversation, not be hyperbolic about shit, not be an asshole racist about shit, you know?
Yeah.
And burp.
No, yeah, no, I thought of the same thing. Like, it's definitely probably around the time to like wrap up and all that. But at the same time, it's like the way we're building steam. This episode has felt great to me, and I like talking about this. And I feel like we're getting somewhere more and more. And I enjoy where the conversations are going each time more. And I like this sort of thing. I'm learning a lot because I if anybody's listening and they're like, man, does that Mike guy follow politics? No, I really don't. So like, I'm really loving what I get to learn and maybe be
Yeah.
the buffer, and it's awesome. And yeah, I'm curious where it'll go, and I'm excited to talk to more people. And I like that because I don't know, maybe I don't know stuff that other people don't know who are trying to listen to this and learn about it, like the Joe Rogan sort of filter. You
Is it
know.
bad that we keep bringing up Joe Rogan?
No, I don't think so. If somebody's narrow enough to like not want to listen to this because we reference his name a few times, they probably will find other reasons to not like us too. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always funny though, man. I listen to Rogan a lot, and there's definitely, I think we talked about this. There's definitely times where I'm just like, I don't agree with what he's saying at all,
yeah.
you know. But at some point, there's going to be something really interesting in the conversation that he's having with somebody.
Yep.
And then just going back to intentions. I mean, I don't question his intentions. I think he's just trying to have a good time and have conversations. And that's, God damn it, we fucking need more of that. We need way more of that. And I think we're going to have that with some of the guests that we're going to have on. And who knows, man? Maybe, maybe, maybe we're going to get hit up. Somebody in the Libertarian Party is going to hit us up and they'll be like, y'all need to shut up. Stop talking about Libertarian Party this way. Kind of libertarian. Shit is that? You're either
That
all
would
in or
make
you're
my day. I would love for that. I would love for somebody to take offense to the point of reaching out and saying we're misrepresenting an always misrepresented party.
Yeah, right. You're misrepresenting the party that no one fucking
Yeah.
understands.
How can you not misrepresent the Libertarian Party at this point? I think that's all you can do when you represent it. It seems like, but
Well, it's more
uh,
about, respect, I think, for the idea or the philosophy of libertarianism as opposed to the party. I don't, that's probably not something that people would embrace because I know where everyone likes to have the home. I'm a Democrat, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, I'm a libertarian, and we do it here, same kind of libertarian. I'm a libertarian tree hugger. You're a
yeah.
psychedelic athlete. We like those labels,
Yeah.
and I embrace mine. But I don't live and die by what the Libertarian Party says. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you don't live or die by like, what one particular shaman says or when one particular athlete says. I'm sure you listen to,
Yeah.
plenty of fighters that you're like, you fucking kidding me?
Hey, I take every DMT entity with a grain of salt.
Love that.
uh,
That's a good note to leave on, I think.
yeah.
Uh, so this day, this was great. We had a good time, man. We talked about Nazis, smoking porn.
Mm-hmm.
What else we talk about? Libertarians being crazy. I like doing these, like, think about, like, looking back, because the conversations, they go off in so many different directions. You know what I mean? So we started about this asshole Kentucky libertarian guy who's comparing vaccine passports to the extermination of 6 million Jews. And then we got into porn and
Yeah.
the Libertarian Party, and what else we talk about?
that covers we definitely things of that. I mean, from the Kentucky thing to the Hitler thing to the porn thing to
So
the,
basically,
the empathy thing too, trying to understand where people are coming from,
yeah.
ways to make it in politics, ways to bring these almost hopeless ideas and viewpoints into bigger scale things, what type of vision that takes. I think I want to watch the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington this week. If you've never seen it, I don't know if you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, but like that, it is that sort of passionate, but like, so it is something like that sort of thing speaks volumes to me, I think. And we touched on some of those notes, and yeah, no, it was
So
definitely a
basically,
wide
the
range.
the name of this episode is going to be Nazis and porn.
Yes. Nazis in porn. I like that.
I mean, it's clickbait, right? We talked about clickbait too. That's some good clickbait.
Yes. Nazis in porn. Done.
Well, on that note, Mike, it was great. And to everyone listening, thank you very much for listening to us talk about Nazis and porn. And we will see you next week. Be well.
Yes.